Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Devin Shanahan Show. It's been a long time coming. Been off for a little while now. Kind of taking off a bunch of time for the holidays. Got a little lazy there, but I'm back now. So, got a few things we want to talk about today. We want to talk about the recent, if you guys have been following the stock market at all or anything like that, we want to talk about the recent massive short squeeze pretty much that has happened amongst a number of stocks, most notably GameStop, AMC Entertainment. There's been a little bit of silver dragged involved too, Bed Bath & Beyond, things like that, right? I'm going to talk about that. It's pretty big news in the financial sector. Pretty interesting things going on. Not the first time it's happened, but definitely the first time it's happened in this way. So we're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about all the executive orders that Biden has signed so far and kind of, how I feel about those. I typically don't like executive orders in general. I don't think they're unconstitutional because they are, by definition, they're constitutional. They are laid out in the Constitution. But I do think that the way that they are used these days is 100% unconstitutional and usually expands the power of the president into ways that the framers of the Constitution did not mean. And after that, which might take a while because he's already done 42 of them, which is a record. But after that, we're going to talk about Arizona a little bit of election fraud talk still. I know that's kind of leaving the news here and there, but we are going to talk about it. We're going to bring it back up. We're going to talk about it a little bit because we have some updates from the Arizona, from Maricopa County. So, but yeah, let's before we get to that, let's jump right in with the short squeeze. All right. So we got an article here from the Daily Wire. Bloodbath. Hedge fund short sale losses top $1 billion following GameStop stock surge. United States short sellers are out more than $70 billion this year on their short positions this year, according to Reuters, and at least $1 billion of that is the result of a Reddit-driven GameStop surge that last week saw shares of the video game retailer, a heavily shorted stock, skyrocket in price. Quote, the hefty losses come as shares of the highly shorted GameStop jumped more than 1,000% in the past week without a clear business reason, forcing short sellers to buy back into the stock to cover potential losses, defined as a short squeeze. While retail investors then piled in to benefit from the surge, Reuters said. Quote, chasing shorted companies became a trend among retail traders, rippling across U.S. markets and Europe. Vortex data showed that as of Wednesday, there were loss-making short positions on more than 5,000 U.S. firms, the outlet continued. Those numbers are based entirely on trades made just in January, and while they cover losses from short sales across the board, around $1 billion of that is the fallout from the GameStop short surge by itself. Short sellers, lost an additional $600 million on Bed Bath & Beyond, another stock targeted for purchase by Wall Street Bets, which is the subreddit on Reddit that kind of started this whole thing. A Reddit-based community that banded together short... Okay, blah, blah, blah. That's what I just said. Other targeted stocks included BlackBerry, theater chain AMC Entertainment, clothing retailer Express, and cell phone company Nokia. I did not even know Nokia existed anymore. According to Business Insider, hedge funds are feeling the pressure, and per the Wall Street Journal, Melvin Capital, the hedge fund that has borne the brunt of the losses from soaring stock prices of heavily shorted stocks recently, lost 53% in January, according to people familiar with the firm. It's quite a bit of money, man. I mean, if you're losing 50% of your investment funds in 1 month, you gotta be looking at bankruptcy, or at least drastically changing things up for the next quarter. I mean, that's insane. I mean, I know they're going to be able to cover this. They're going to be able to come out of this. These hedge funds are going to be able to come out of this just fine. They're going to sell these stocks amongst each other. They're going to prolong these short positions until these Redditors can no longer hold out anymore. But yeah, I mean, 53% loss, that's not good. Some people definitely going to be losing their jobs over that one. Let's go on. Melvin has had to ask fellow hedge funds for a bailout. Yeah, that's literally what I said. They're going to be selling them amongst each other to hold out the storm. But anyhow, quote, Melvin was founded by Gabe Plotkin, a former star portfolio manager for hedge fund titan Steve A. Cohen. It started the year with about $12.5 billion and now runs more than $8 billion. Current figure includes $2.75 billion in emergency funds Citadel LLC, its partners, and Mr. Cohen's .72 asset management injected into the hedge fund last Monday, the Wall Street Journal noted. As part of the deal, they got non-controlling revenue shares in Melvin for 3 years. So far, Citadel, its partners, and .72 have lost money on the deal. Through the precise scope of the loss was unclear Sunday. GameStop shares are not expected to stay high forever. By the end of trading on Friday, the stock was already down from its peak. but still hovering around $325 a share, far more than the $10 it was trading for back in September. The Wall Street Bets incident, though, has triggered a wave of concern from both Wall Street and federal regulators who seem intent on shutting down retail investigating like that done through free stock trading apps like Robinhood. By Wednesday, Robinhood had already installed new restrictions on trading shares of GameStop and other targeted companies. That's almost the biggest thing to come out of this story here is the restrictions. We'll talk about it in a sec when I'm done reading this article, but there's a lot of laws have been broken. A lot of companies have done some shady stuff. They've partnered up with government to do it, potentially. We're hearing a lot of rumors about Janet Yellen and things like that getting involved. But yeah, that's the biggest story. But let's finish this article real quick, then I'll give my opinion a little bit more. Federal legislators are, it seems, also looking at Wall Street's actions, threatening to ask whether hedge funds and their powerful friends collaborated with allies in the so-called, quote, big tech industry to put a halt to amateur trading operations when the stock share prices skyrocketed. Yeah, absolutely. They absolutely did. You got to be a moron to think that they did not collaborate with their buddies in big tech. I mean, you gotta. Okay, let's take a step back here. Let's explain short selling real quick for my listeners. Just those of you who don't know what it is. This show is primarily centered around politics, so I forgive you if you don't know what short selling is. I know I've said multiple times that I want to get into the financial sector and the financial news a little bit more, but there's just so much in politics to always cover that it kind of always takes the cake, right? But this is a perfect example, perfect time to get into it a little bit. So, short selling essentially is a way to make money on a stock or a company that is losing value or you believe is going to go down, right? So what you do is, let's say let's just use GameStop, for example, I guess. Let's say you look at GameStop and you say, hey, this company, this share is, these are all theoretical numbers. These are not real numbers. This is just to make math easy. Let's say a GameStop share is going for $10, right? And you believe that's overvalued. Maybe you believe that a GameStop share is only worth, $5, right? Like, people aren't really going to GameStop anymore, especially with COVID. And, also they're kind of getting the Best Buy treatment anyway. No one's out there buying physical copies of video games these days. You just download it online. You stay home, you download it, you play the game, You don't need to go drive to GameStop. I remember my parents taking me to GameStop when I was in, like, the 8th grade, picking up physical copies of games. That was for, like, the PlayStation 2 and stuff, and PlayStation 3, things like that. That was really old stuff, right? That was a long time ago. I haven't been in a very long time. I don't even think I own any physical games anymore, but anyhow, yeah, so, GameStop shares are $10, and you think they're worth $5, right? So you think they're a little overvalued. So, the average person might think, well, how do you make money on something like that? How do you make money on something that's losing value, Well, here's what you do. You might call up your stockbroker or someone who has a share of GameStop, someone who owns a share of this GameStop, and you might say, hey, can I borrow that share of GameStop and give it back to you in like a month plus interest, right? And they'll probably say sure, right? They'll say sure. I mean, yeah, let's do it, right? No harm, no foul. I can make some interest off this GameStop stock. So you'll go and you'll borrow that share of GameStop that's $10 and you'll sell it immediately and then reinvest that $10, right? And then when your short contract is over, like when it's time to, go give it back to the guy who you borrowed it from plus the interest, you hope that since you made the calculation that the stock is overvalued, maybe that by the time it's time to go, buy that stock and give it to the man, maybe it's give it back to the borrower, maybe that stock has went from $10 to $5. So you can now, a month later, if you borrowed it when it was at 10, you can now a month later go and buy it for $5, give it back to who you borrowed it from, and then you pocket the $5, right? Obviously, you give the fees and the interest to the guy you borrowed it from and all that, but you pocket the money, right? That's essentially what shorting is. There's nothing inherently wrong with shorting stocks. It's been going on forever. This is definitely by no means the biggest short squeeze to ever happen. It's nowhere even close to the biggest short squeeze to ever happen. It's not it's just nowhere close, right? It's been making the news a lot because it happened through Reddit and kind of like this whole story about, the cause, like the small man, the small little Redditor going against the big old hedge funds, all the suits, right? And try to take them down, right? One of those nice little Robin Hood stories, no pun intended. But yeah, so, there's nothing inherently wrong with short selling at all. There's a lot of people out there saying that something is inherently wrong with short selling and all these hedge funds that do it deserve to go out of business just because they're short selling and that's bad and blah, 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 blah. No, there's nothing wrong with short selling at all. The free market allows it. You should totally allow it. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. Morally, ethically, whatever it may be. But, so, all these companies, tons of hedge funds, they came in and they shorted GameStop, right? And what all these people on Reddit decided to do is they all got together and they said, all these hedge funds, I've noticed that all these hedge funds have tons of shorts on this, right? Because you can go, You can read the numbers. You can go look at the end of fiscal year reports, and you can see how much of this stock is being shorted, right? And they realize that most of the GameStop stocks are actually being shorted, and that these contracts are up soon. They're going to have to, like I said, the contracts are up. They're going to have to buy this stock back, give it back to the person they borrowed it from, and pay interest, right? So what happens is they decide to have a short squeeze, which is where everyone buys GameStop. You get everybody together to buy a ton of GameStop. And naturally, that's going to raise the demand artificially for a GameStop, right? It's going to make the price go up because everyone's buying it. Everyone wants it. It's going to make the price go up, even though GameStop itself is worth nothing. It should be going down. But which is almost the ironic part about this whole thing is that the hedge funds are correct, technically. Like shorting is the proper move to make on GameStop right now. Like it is losing value. It should be going out of business soon. But, people decided to squeeze them out for it. And what that means is that, when you get that price rising up, you get all these little guys on Reddit buying GameStop and the price is going up and up and up. And then all these short contracts, they come to a close. It's time for these people to buy them back and give it back to the person they borrowed it from and pay that interest. So they have to go and buy the stock back at this price that is way high, right? And we're talking this stock went from like $2 or $3 all the way up to, I think the high was like $420 at one point last week. So they have to go and buy it back at $400, $300, and that even increases demand even more. That makes the price go up even more and more and more. You can see why it's called a squeeze, right? They're like squeezing these people for all it's worth. But yeah, so they have to go and buy it back, and then they lose tons of money, right? That's why shorts are actually very risky. I don't recommend you doing them unless you are a very experienced trader, because if when you're buying something on the long, right, when you're making an investment for something that you think is going to go up, the most amount of money you can lose is the value of the actual stock. If you pay $10 for a stock, the most amount of money you can lose is that $10. If the stock goes to zero, that's the most amount, right? If you short something, though, say you borrow a stock for $10 and you short it and it goes through the roof, technically that stock could go up infinitely. So your potential for losses are infinite when you short something. So it's a very risky method, but there's a smart way to do it. There's a lot of people who do it all the time, every single day, make a lot of money doing it. But yeah, so that's essentially what happened here. You got a bunch of people squeezing the hedge funds, and it was essentially like kind of like this, it got this vibe that the little man was pushing against the hedge fund, trying to, take back all this money that, the hedge funds stole from everyone in the bailouts in 2008 and all that. No one likes rich people, right? It's all this. I don't really care. I have no problem with rich people, but I have a problem with assholes, not rich people. But, you got all these people kind of, all these little guys, and you got CNBC, and you got all these big people out, on Twitter and stuff, like Elon Musk and stuff, backing these guys and saying, yeah, get them, go get the hedge funds, show them right, serves them right. They just sit around in their suits and they play with the economy and they make tons of money for doing nothing. And, get them right. There's a win for the little guy, right? You got people like AOC in politics. You got people like Ted Cruz. You got all these guys all coming out saying, yeah, this is good, blah, 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 blah. And then, I saw this coming a mile away because I know the government. I've seen the government. They're always shutting things down. They're always acting unconstitutionally. Big tech, big companies, corporations, they're always acting in their own interests, no matter how illegal it is. But then what happened was, so, the stock price is rising. And I know I'm kind of rambling here, so stay with me. But, then all of a sudden Robinhood, this app that most of the people are buying it on, they said, oh, screw you guys. We're stopping it. We're shutting it down. You can't trade it anymore, right? And there's even reports that Robinhood was force selling some of these stocks that some of these, Redditors had bought in. And, this is extremely illegal stuff, right? You can't just shut this down. This is market manipulation at its best, right? And there's lots of rumors coming out that, this Melvin Capital and this Citadel Capital, which are the two major hedge funds that were shorting GameStop, there's lots of rumors that these people were essentially like, hey, they called up Robinhood and said, hey, maybe you guys should, it'd be real great if you guys shut this down because we're losing a lot of money here, So, there's a lot of rumors coming out about that, and I tend to believe those rumors because, this hasn't been widely reported on, but Citadel Capital, one of the main companies, Citadel and Melvin, they actually are one of the largest investors in Robinhood. So, if they went over and they're called the Robinhood buddies, they say, hey, as our, it'd be real nice if you guys shut this down. And remember, we are your largest investor, so you might want to make us happy, right? So the guys over at Robinhood are probably like, shit, we should probably shut this down. So they go and they shut it down. They obviously act in favor of this. And then you got other companies following suit. Tons of people are stopping trading, right? At one point, you couldn't even buy GameStop in like all of the US unless you were through one of the major stockbrokers. We're not talking Robinhood or like E-Trade. We're talking like you were actually on Wall Street. So there was this big thing, right? It made international news, all this crap, right? And someone needs to go to jail for this, to be completely honest. I mean, you can't just be taking money from people and, forcing sales and banning the sale and trading of stocks just because you want to, just because you're essentially protecting your hedge fund buddies, right? But yeah, so it turned into this big thing, right? But, like I said, I mean, all the people in the hedge funds were technically correct. And, I don't know. I'm not taking sides on this one. It's nice to see. It's nice to see that, people who are using Robinhood, like your average everyday person, can just log into the phone. I mean, I have Robinhood. You just get on the app, you can buy stock or whatever you want, right? And you can trade, right? You don't have to be some big rich billionaire with access to a stockbroker anymore. You can just do it on this app, right? And it's kind of nice, right? I'm all for that, but as soon as it starts messing with these hedge funds, they shut it down, and that's just not good, right? Someone needs to go to jail if they break the law for that, obviously. But who knows? I mean, most of the people who are buying this stock at this point are, or even in it originally, most of these people are going to get left holding the bag. They're gonna lose a bunch of money because it's not a good investment, and someone's always going to be left holding the bag, right? There's going to be those few guys who got in really early, right? Like bought the GameStop initially to try to short squeeze it, and they're going to make the trade of a lifetime. They're going to make tons of money on it if they sell, right? That's the thing. But you see all these Redditors out here like, don't sell, hold, hold their feet to the fire. Like, we'll make all these hedge funds lose money. And it's like, dude, these hedge funds can hold out way longer than you. They have so many funds. They're just going to borrow money from their hedge fund buddies and pay them back. They're going to take more short positions to cover their others. And they're eventually, even if this goes on for like a month, which I doubt it will, I'll bet it'll be over mid this coming week, But, I mean, the price is already starting to go down in all these stocks. But, yeah, they're going to outlast all these people, and everyone on Reddit is going to be caught holding this bag, and they're going to have lost hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars, maybe even billions of dollars, right? And it's just, it's not good. It's this, in one case I like it, but at the same time, it's a little bit overhyped. It's a little bit, I don't know. I mean, it's just, I think I've made my point. You guys get it. I'm not going to ramble about it anymore. But, I mean, there's just tons of people out there who think that this is the biggest short of all time. It's totally not true. If you think this is big, right? Like, people have been essentially shorting silver and gold all the time. Like JP Morgan Chase, all these companies. And I mean, even saw it in Reddit. I mean, First Majestic Silver, which is a large silver ETF. It's I believe its stock market symbol is AG. But they kind of got caught up in this short squeeze. Not nearly as much as GameStop, but quite a bit. And I mean, it's just, the reason it is because some of these Redditors are actually kind of smart. And if you go out and look at their Discord server, they actually kind of know what they're talking about, a few of them. And they said, there's tons of banks, mainly JP Morgan Chase, who are, shorting silver all the time. And they're not shorting silver in the same way that they're shorting GameStop. They're shorting it in the sense that they trade these future contracts, tons of them, right, to kind of manipulate the price. And the thing about a future is essentially a contract saying that I would like a future delivery of a certain commodity at a future date, right? And it's like kind of like a buy it now and I'll receive it later, right? But the only way this works with silver is that everyone knows that none of these futures contracts are actually going to be fulfilled. No one's ever actually going to want delivery of this silver. If at one point in time, all these futures actually cashed in on these deals and actually wanted the delivery of this silver, the entire market would collapse. All these people would have to cash in on this silver because there's not actually enough silver in circulation right now to cover all these futures. That's the thing. So it's kind of being shorted in that way, right? If you can force these people, essentially, if you could like short squeeze silver, which is a much bigger market than this GameStop stuff, right? It's a huge international market, right? Like to the scale where, a group of Redditors would not be able to short squeeze the silver market. It's too large, so it wouldn't have any impact. But I mean, if you got all these people kind of pushing these futures in and they have to cash in on that, I mean, you're going to get silver and gold going through the roof like crazy. And there's some people out there on Reddit who noticed this with First Majestic Silver and kind of started doing it with that too. But like I said, they're just too small of a group. You're not going to get a bunch of guys in their basement on Reddit, sitting in their parents' basement who are able to essentially short squeeze silver. It's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. They won't have an impact. Even with this GameStop stuff, I don't think it's them. I think there's some big players behind these guys. And obviously they're using the whole Redditors as kind of like the front man because I mean, that's the story, right? That's the story. The story is the little guy versus the big guy, right? David takes down Goliath. It doesn't sound good if it's, one hedge fund stealing money from another hedge fund. Like, that doesn't, no one wants to help do that. So I think that's, there's a lot of big money, I think, behind this GameStop move, because I just don't think that Reddit or, the individual in reality has the amount of people doing it. I just don't think they have the amount of capital at their disposal to actually make this change. So I do think there's some big whales behind it, but you never know, right? You never know. We'll see next fiscal year when the reports come out, I guess. But let's go on. Let's talk about it's got an article here from CNN. We're going to talk about all the executive actions, and there are a lot of them, almost 50, that Biden has done in his first 2 weeks in office. So, CNN Politics, what matters? Biden has signed 42 executive actions since taking office. Here's what each does. So, he signed a few healthcare. Look, before I get into this, let's talk about my overall feeling on executive orders. Executive orders are laid out in the Constitution as a way for the president to essentially do what Congress has told him to do. So that was worded very poorly. So Congress passes laws, right? The legislative branch passes laws. And then the executive branch is supposed to enforce those laws, right? So what this means is, like, if you pass a law saying, for example, I'm going to use an example I heard from Ben Shapiro over the weekend. So, it's like my wife. My wife might tell me to clean the kitchen, right? So that would be like the legislative branch. She would be the legislative branch in this case. She would pass a law saying Devin needs to clean the kitchen. And then I would be the executive branch in this situation. And then I would come in and I would actually, like, iron out all the fine details and pass all the little tiny orders that actually get the kitchen clean. Meaning, the big law is clean the kitchen, but there's a lot to go into that. You might have to, like, okay, get the Swiffer out and Swiffer the floor, and then you gotta, sweep or vacuum, and then you gotta, then you gotta clean the sink or do the dishes, and do all this stuff and organize the fridge, whatever it may be, right? And so it's not as simple as that, but that's what executive actions are for. Executive actions are essentially, hey, the legislature passed a law, and then under the Constitution, the president is supposed to sign an executive order to say how that law actually gets done, right? So if, left to that, to being done how the Constitution says they are, there's nothing wrong with them, right? Like, if Congress passes a law saying, saying we need to, I don't know, saying murder is illegal or something, right? Which is a very stupid example, but if the Congress passes a law saying murder is illegal, then the president might sign some executive orders saying things like, if someone murders someone, you need to go arrest them, and they might open up, like, homicide departments to investigate these murders, things like that, right? To kind of enforce that law that murder is legal, right? So, so in reality, that's executive actions aren't a big deal, but they have been expanded to essentially do whatever the president wants him to do, like, without Congress at all. It's been expanded to just be essentially, you can just do whatever you want. And I mean, the problem is, every 4 years, 4 or 8 years, we're going to just essentially just electing some sort of monarch who just comes in here and signs a bunch of executive orders, gets rid of the ones that the last guy did, if he doesn't like him, right? If he's, got a D or an R by his name or vice versa, he just goes and gets rid of all the ones the last guy did and puts his own in. And then every 4 or 8 years, we just elect another monarch who does all this crap, top-down fucking enforcement of these laws, right? That he just made up all on his own, no congressional oversight or anything. And it's not good, but President Biden has inked 42, which is more than, like, the last 3 presidents combined in the first month, right? I think, like, Bush and Clinton did, like, 1. Trump did, like, 4 or 5, and Obama did, like, 4 or 5 as well, right, in the first couple weeks. Like, this is insane. 42 executive actions. But, yeah, let's read through a few of these, right? So, this is from CNN, mind you, so mind the bias. Healthcare, right? He did an executive order on strengthening Medicaid and the Affordable Care Act. He had a memorandum on protecting women's health at home and abroad. Yeah, so this is a bad one. This is the Mexico City policy, which is essentially we are funding abortions in foreign countries, which makes no sense to me. Well, we shouldn't be funding hardly anything in foreign countries. Nonetheless, healthcare and, abortions at that, right? Like, even controversial healthcare in that matter, right? It's not just like we're funding healthcare for, people in Haiti or something who need healthcare because they don't have any. We're funding abortions in Mexico City. That makes absolutely no sense, right? And, he's done a bunch of BS executive action about the environment, of course. He's done things about equity. I don't even need to read any of these. equity. Everything under equity is just essentially just racism, right? What that means is essentially it's just all these executive actions are going to be racism against white people, essentially what that means, right? In short. Um, Equity, a lot of people hear the word equity and they think, oh, that sounds good, right? Like we want equity, we want people to be equal and stuff like that. No, the Democrats, they don't mean equity like everyone should have an equal chance. What they mean is everyone should have an equal result, equal outcome. And that's not good, Equal opportunity is good, right? Like the laws are all the same for everybody. No one's discriminated against. The laws are all the same for everyone. Equal outcome is bad because that means you're taking from one person and giving to another person so that they all end up at the same place. And it's even worse in this situation because we're doing it based on race and things like that. It's essentially just racism. And they'll say it's not, it's not racism. You can't be racist against white people. BS. I mean, it's absolute crap, right? So listen to this one. Memorandum condemning and combating racism, xenophobia, and intolerance against Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders in the United States. I didn't know that there was such a big problem with that we need an executive order. I mean, what does it even do? It acknowledges the rise in discrimination against Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders in the last year, directing HHS to consider issuing guidance on best practices to improve cultural competency, language access, and sensitivity towards AAPIs. AAPIs, nice. That's so the next time you guys see an Asian American or Pacific Islander, just be like, "Hey, what's up, AAPI?" Like, what the hell is going on here, man? These people are crazy, and it has to do with the COVID-19 response, of course, as well. Which means essentially, what this means is give vaccines to all the Asian and Pacific Islanders and blacks and Mexicans and Hispanics first, and screw all the white people, even if they're old and need the vaccine. This is absolutely terrible, right? The vaccine needs to be based on pre-existing conditions and age. That's it, right? Everything else is a statistical error and you're making a mistake. It's absolutely absurd. But, he's also done a bunch on the economy, which I'm sure has to do with like equity and things like that, right? And then COVID-19, of course. Oh, wow. He's done a lot on COVID-19. He did something on the census. I think that just has to do, oh yeah, okay. So requires non-citizens to be included in the census because Donald Trump passed something about that back before he left. Immigration. Oh, yeah. So immigration, he essentially said no more border wall because, it is actively being built. I know you don't hear about it during the Trump administration, but it was actively being built slowly, but it was being built. I think he did like at a couple 100 miles or something like that. And he essentially also stopped all capture of people coming across the border illegally. They're all let go now. So it's just, it's absolutely crap, right? They're implementing everything that the left wants, everything that the squad wants, and it's all done completely unconstitutionally by executive orders, right? I would have no problem. I don't want to say no problem. I'd have a little problem with them if they were passed by laws, right? But at least if it's passed through the legislature, at least it's done properly. At least it's done constitutionally. I'm a constitutional guy. I don't have a problem if things are done constitutionally. But when things are just done willy-nilly, I'm not for it, no matter who it is. I was against every single executive order that Donald Trump did. Every single one. They were all unconstitutional. They all expanded the purview of the president unconstitutionally. And I'm against all 42 of them like this. And, I mean, this is just insane. 42 in 2 weeks? What if he just goes on and does this forever, right? This is actually 42 in 9 days, right? So 42 in about a week. What? Is he just going to do this forever? Is he going to keep this rate up? What is that, right? So we got 52 weeks in a year. 52 times 4, assuming he serves 4 years. That's 208. I could have done that in my head. That's stupid. So we got 208. 208 weeks, right? So if we do 208 times, let's say like 35, because that's about how many he did in the first week. 7,280. So if he keeps up this rate, we'll have about 7,000 executive orders from Joe Biden after the first 4 years, and about 14,000 if he does it for 2 years, right? And this is just absurd. Every president who comes into office does more and more and more and more and more of these. Does this mean, like, if Kamala Harris is in office, like, after Joe Biden, that we're going to get, like, 30,000 in the first year or something like this? This is absurd. How are you even supposed to, like, follow all these executive actions or even make sure any of them happen when you're passing this many, right? It's, like, oversaturating the executive order, like, system. It's just insane, right? But yeah, I'm against all of these, absolutely all of them. I'm against pretty much all executive orders except for ones that are constitutional. But yeah, so there we have it, right? We got Monarch Joe Biden, King Joe Biden in office, and he is not going to use the legislature for everything, even though he controls the legislature, both houses. And yeah, he's just gonna, pass little laws. King Biden over here. But yeah, let's go on. Let's talk about this Arizona stuff. So we got an article here from Qatar News, which is just, I think, an Arizona news company, a little local news company over there. So So yeah, let's read it. Arizona Senate hires auditor to review Maricopa County election. Phoenix AP, Associated Press. The Republican leader of the Arizona Senate announced Friday that she hired an independent auditor to scour election results in Maricopa County, where supervisors voted earlier in the week to hire two firms to audit election equipment and software used in last November's election. The move comes after the county refused to allow the Senate to access the election equipment, copies of ballots, and other materials under a subpoena issued by lawmakers, some of whom continue to question whether Democratic President Joe Biden won. Doesn't matter if he won or not. He's in office now, but he obviously did win. Senate President Karen Fann said in a statement that the auditor will be tasked with doing an audit much larger in scope than the county intends. Quote, we must bring back confidence that the election results reported are how votes were legally cast, Fann said. The Senate's forensic audit will bring accuracy and detail to the process, and with that, restore integrity to the election. I completely agree with this, right? Obviously, no one's going to pay attention to this, at least on the national scale, because the election's over and Joe Biden is in office, right? And, this is how the news cycle works. You remember things for about 1 minute in this country, and then you move on. So no one's going to really care about this, but this is good, right? At least for the local people in Maricopa County, they might hear about this because they'll read in the local news. It's hopefully on local television channels out there, but this is good, right? This is what we need to do. We need to have full forensic audits of all the states that were in question to restore faith in the electoral system, because we just can't have something like this going on every single election. We can't have half of the country, 72 to 75 million people who voted for Donald Trump, thinking that the election was stolen. I mean, if you look at the statistics, like an overwhelming percentage of people think that the election was stolen, Republicans at least. And that number's probably going down every day. But still, you can't, it's not going to work like this. We need to restore faith and integrity in the democratic system, or else it's going to fall apart and no one's going to have any faith in it. And that's, we're going to start to see the country fall apart if we don't have faith in our democratic process. So I'm all for this, and I wanted to cover it because I haven't seen anyone really covering it, and I think it's important. I think it's important to restore faith in the democratic process here in this country. But yeah, I mean, that's all I got for you guys today. Thanks for tuning in. Remember, share, subscribe, all that good stuff, right? Share it with your friends, share it with your liberal friends, your progressive friends. See if we can convert some of them, bring them over to the more constitutional side. I don't like to call myself a Republican because I'm not. I'm actually a registered Democrat, but I'm certainly not a Democrat, though. But I consider myself a free market constitutionalist. So yeah, bring like and subscribe, bring your friends over, have people listen, and share it with your family. All those people, right? Give me a like, and yeah, I'll tune in next time. I'm hoping to start doing these here again on my regular schedule, which is every couple days. I'll put another video out and a podcast. I'm also so if you got a favorite podcast host, Apple Podcasts, or what are the other ones, like Spotify, all that stuff, right? I'm on all that, on all of it. So yeah, remember, subscribe, and thank you very much, everyone. I'll see you guys next time.